growing up, my parents worked all the time. They'd leave in the morning and they wouldn't come back home until 6, 7 o'clock at night. So, because of that, and we lived in the suburbs, I wasn't really able to participate in school sports. I remember for a minute, I wanted to play football and I just couldn't get a ride to practice. That's all it was. I do imagine like what it would have been like to engage in like all of the activities that I wanted to do. I know those things really can shape and mold a child's perspective and help them develop as a person. So a lot of that isn't possible if you're not home.
Yeah.
There's so much more to money than saving it, spending it, and making it grow. So we're digging deeper and exploring all the topics we only scratched the surface on in our book to uncover how money really affects our lives. I'm Julien.
And I'm Kiersten, but most people know us as Rich and Regular. Maybe you've seen us on social media, read about us, or we popped up on your TV one day.
The Saunders are rewriting the rules to achieving financial freedom.
We're writers and creative entrepreneurs on a mission to inspire better conversations about money. Welcome to Cashing Out, the podcast.
When it comes to our beliefs about money, about what's possible, our fathers were the architects. They provided our first lessons on how to play the game, how to win the game, and ultimately push the family forward. But a lot has changed over time. Fathers today want to do more than what their fathers did for them. Being a provider isn't the only job dads are signing up for. So we decided to talk to a few to learn about what fatherhood means to them and how it shapes their views on work and money. Meet Troy. He's a father of two, husband, and multifaceted entrepreneur. When he's not working out, setting style trends, or being a grill master, he's focused on being the best dad he can be. And to get there, he had to reevaluate and reprioritize everything.
Can you hear her now? She's not used to being like put away. Yeah, trying to, I gave you a couple extra treats. I filled up your water. So she'll stop eventually. Yeah, but it's dog. I'm sorry. Now she's scratching at the door. Yo, nobody, I swear I'm the lowest on the totem pole in this house, man.
Yeah, we were talking to another guy who will be on the same episode who's expecting his first child yesterday. We were trying to explain like what happens to your priorities and like the things that, just change, and it just keeps evolving and you just get more and more distant from the person you thought you knew as yourself.
Yeah.
As you continue to build your family.
Yeah, you can. I feel like sometimes I could actually, like, I have an out of body experience where I'm actually looking at who I was and giving grace to who I am now for some of the, not necessarily shortcomings, but comparison can be the thief of joy. And sometimes I compare myself to who I was in certain capacities in my life. Yeah. And I've been really shifting that mindset to not do that, specifically being like, in the fitness industry and being like super fit guy, like last 3 years, significant change.
Yeah.
But also giving myself grace for all the other areas of my life that I've like superseded who I was.
Hello?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that's a perfect segue, because that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. You used to be, by my standards, and I would say by most people's standards, like the pinnacle. And I'm not saying like you fell off, right? But I think, just from a standpoint of talking about parenting and especially just being a father, you were faced with a challenging decision, right? And I've always said that I think a lot of fathers are torn between their desires and their ambitions, right? So you may have this ambition to be this person at the peak of your game or at the peak of your industry. And I would say without question, you were there. You were there as the top fitness instructor in New York City, which is an incredible achievement. I'm curious as to what impact fatherhood had on you to make you reevaluate where you were and sort of pick a different career path, a different sort of self-employment path. Like, was that the primary motivator, or were there other things that kind of got in the way that sort of made you reevaluate what you or who you used to be?
Mhm. So I'd say first off is that fitness, or I like to look at the umbrella of wellness, not even just fitness, because I find fitness is one component of wellness, which became really, I'd say honestly, it just became like very tedious and monotonous to me. It just became something that I didn't really wake up feeling fulfilled and enjoyed. I love moving. I love the part where the community is built and I can see that I'm impacting and changing people's lives for the better. But the business structure, no matter if you're at the top tier or not, if you're not like, let's say, signed to a big brand like Peloton, where you have benefits of 401k, health insurance. Your favorite coach doesn't have health insurance. Most fitness instructors are 1099 employees. They're independent contractors. You're paying out of pocket. We all know Cobra and other providers that are super expensive. So I got into this gym and I had the doors flying off the handle, and I was right about to become actually an owner. I had they were giving me equity in the business, giving me a yearly salary, benefits, the works. COVID hits. So it kind of threw a monkey wrench in a lot of things. And my wife was an assistant principal in Westchester at the time. I was commuting back and forth to the city. And if there was one person that had to kind of stay home to be with our son, Sage, it was going to be me. I had the flexibility. She had the benefits. At that time, she had the high-paying six-figure contract, the one that's, proud to say one of the biggest contracts you can get as a building leader. My wife was making in her 30s, like really, really good money. And I had the flexibility to teach from home and do that, but that wasn't something that I wanted to do. So here I am, moving, shaking, being in the city, building, like really about to finally get the due diligence and the grace that I feel I deserve for the work that I put in, and kibosh. So you take that, plus being someone who never really works out at home, who deciphers the difference between home being home and the gym being kind of a workspace, even mentally for me to tap in, is different. You don't got a 1-year-old dragging on your leg when you're slinging a kettlebell around. It's just different. You know what I'm saying? Never really been one to work out at home since I first got into the industry, when it was like life or death and I was changing my body. After that, I've been blessed to work out and train at some of the best facilities in New York City. So I've always, so being locked in, teaching fitness classes at the same time, watching my 1-year-old who's kind of like running through my fitness mat, like telling me, Papa, I got to go potty in the middle of a class with 50 people online who are choosing to sweat with me, when every other studio in the world in Manhattan is also offering virtual classes. Like, they didn't have to be there, to the point where I remember one day literally breaking down. I couldn't compose myself. I literally broke down in tears in front of like 50 people on camera, and I had to cancel my class. I was like, I can't even do this. And they were like, listen, we're giving you more grace than you know. And a lot of people that were at that time, how Zoom is, some people were on camera, some people had those black screens with their names. So many people came off of camera and showed me, like, this is why my screen isn't on. And the amount of children that were like in the background, talk about, I couldn't at that moment.
I just got chills. I literally just got chills, because it's like, man, the parents, the support we give to each other is life-changing. We get asked all the time, like by new parents or people who want to start a family, like, what is your advice? How can we financially prepare? And it's like, find community. Find a mom group, a dad group, whoever who understands, is in the trenches with you, and doesn't make you feel bad about like this responsibility that we have. Like, it's a part of life. And yes, it can be disruptive, but like, it depends on what side you're looking at it from. Is it disruptive that somebody needs help going to the restroom? Like, at some point, that'll be all of us, Lord willing, we live long enough. We'll all need help. So like,
Most men that I know that when faced with a situation like that, where sort of like, their needs are cut out from underneath them, would kind of double down on trying to make that happen, and trying to bring home the bacon, and trying to bring home the bread, however you want to define it. But it seemed to me as if, like, even through that, you were very clear on kind of separating work from home, aside from just having a preference for where you want to work out, and where you want to build. But like, where does that come from, and why is it so important to you?
Coming from my neighborhood, one of the most successful people that I grew up was a gentleman. I won't mention his name, but very successful drug dealer turned businessman who was a mentor to me when I didn't have a father. And one thing this gentleman taught me at a very early age was that every dollar isn't a good dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from the ilk of, I'll find a way, but I'm not going to create career suicide or spiritual suicide to make income. Because if I do that, I'm not going to be a good father. I'm not going to be a good husband. At the end of the day, I really operate with passion and purpose. It's in my core. It's how I was raised. And I really got to a point early on in my life where I knew I had to work for myself. So I was kind of transitioning in that way anyway. I kind of had, like I said, I had one foot in. It was either going to go this way with the equity in the business. If not, my social media career was already, it wasn't necessarily a side hustle, but it wasn't making enough steady income for me to make it my main thing yet. Right. So, we were okay, and that was Chantel's job. We were super okay. And I didn't have an ego, I also, in my marriage specifically, we don't have gender specific roles. We're team players. We show up for each other. Jay-Z says in a song, if everybody in your clique is rich, your clique is rugged, nobody will fold, because everyone will be each other's crutches. When it comes to me and my wife and our household, there's been many times when I was down and I had to lean on her for support. And I've been proud that, I've been able to do the same for her. So it wasn't like, we didn't have those gender specific norms. We had this house in Westchester that we just moved into during COVID. I had to get rid of the nanny. I was a full-time stay-at-home dad and a fitness instructor who had a son in his arms saying, bye, mommy, as mommy went to work to bring home the bacon for the family. I think, the ability to not feel emasculated, the ability to feel like I can champion my strong partner who's bringing home the bacon for our collective, our unit and I also saw that, make no mistake, shout out to all the women who are stay-at-home moms, shout out to all the stay-at-home dads, being a parent is a full-time job. Yes. It may not be something that is monetary, right?
Yeah, it's unpaid labor. It is a full-time job.
Full-time job. So I was working the best way I could during that time. And, by the grace of God, through COVID, a lot of social media opportunities started coming to the point where it was like, yo, this is for real. And I was already in it. You know what I mean? I remember when my first campaign was $300. And then I remember, when I started, doing QuickBooks and spreadsheets, and I'm like, all right, we made $60,000 this year. Oh, this is $80,000. I remember the first year we broke 100,000, 6 figures on my own as an entrepreneur. That's not something that's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On your own, not on my own, but, with the grace of God, but to make that much money on your own without a big company behind you, you know what I mean? Was like, that's when it really started to be like, yo, we got to take this thing seriously, and started investing in, these big joints, and you know what I mean? This, I got like heavy artillery, you got to invest once you start to see it become what the direction of where you want to go in your life. And then, it got to the point where when Chantel had just received tenure and things weren't going well at the school. And we noticed that there was a lack of diversity and there were only 3 children of color in the entire school, not grade, not class, school. And, with taxes, everything in New York, we were like, we're out of here. And we left. And at that point, the business was successful enough for us to come over here to where we are now. And even though we lost one stream of income, our quality of life has increased. And we're doing great, and more than anything, our children have both parents at any given time. We can show up. We've shown up to our son's Thanksgiving celebration that they just did. We show up for the Halloween trunk or treat. We're both there. All the things, you know what I'm saying? And I know. And y'all go to some of the things and you won't see some parents there. And I don't know, but I would assume you feel the same. It breaks my heart because I know them kids wish their parents there, and shout out to them because they're both sides of that coin. Kids.
I was about to say the parents wish they could be there too.
Yeah, it's hard. And I pinched myself at that level of autonomy. And to me, you can't put a price on that. So, I know we aspire for so many things and we're working and we're strategizing, but the ability to do that is priceless. And I have no regrets for the decisions we made because, it was the path that God had aligned for us to get here. It was crazy. There were days when I would scream into my pillow and cry and have those conversations. It was a lot of self-work. Thank God we were making enough money for me to be in therapy virtually through COVID, because I feel like that really helped me a lot. That helped me peel back the layers of being a father to begin with without having one. People don't understand what it feels like to be fatherless and then go into fatherhood. I did not think I was going to be as amazing as I am, and I will puff my chest out. You put me in any room, it ain't a competition, but I'm smoking this father shit. Smoking,
Yes. Talking
unapologetically,
shit.
body.
Killing it. Ask any parent and they'll tell you, having a kid changes everything. But Troy's not the only one that reevaluated his career to focus more on his role as a father. Dads today are getting creative and embarking on newer, exciting ways to earn income. Instead of devoting the majority of their time on the clock to the detriment of their home life, they're spending more time at home, enjoying the best of both worlds. And in some cases, the effect is immeasurable. Meet Brad. He's a teacher turned entrepreneur, husband, and proud girl dad. For him, earning more wasn't just about having more money. It was about having more time.
As I think back to when we first met, it was at Camp Phi, and we tell that story in our book about our experience there. But I wanted to talk a little bit about about that shift, because I would imagine before you had your daughter, you were like just as focused on growing your career and making as much money as possible. But then you kind of, I guess, she enters the world and it really kind of stops the way that you see things and the way that you viewed your career. But can you take me back to that moment? Like, what were the things, what was happening, and how did you feel as you were reevaluating your career?
Yeah, for sure. So at that point, I was fortunate enough to have already been introduced to the FIRE community and this concept of save more, spend less, right? And for that reason, I was in a strength position as an individual. I was in a position where I didn't need every dollar that I was making. Now, it was leading me towards saving more and more money so that I could hopefully retire earlier, just have more options in the future. And so at the point where Evelyn was on her way, I had a great job, right? I was making good money. I was working full-time hours and I was working from home, and it was a typical 9 to 5. And I would come downstairs around 5:30. And, I always try to be honest with myself that even though I was getting off of work at 5, it took some time, 30 minutes to an hour, to sort of come down off of that world and re-enter into family world. And at the time, it was just me and my wife. And as soon as we found out we were pregnant, and that was something that we'd been working towards for a couple of years at that point. As soon as we found out, like, all right, this is legit, like this is going to happen, it started getting more real for me. Right in my head, I was going up to work and I was thinking, there's going to be a child when I come downstairs soon. Like, this is crazy. And that was exciting and it was fun. But then as it got closer, I'll say around as we entered into that third trimester, so about 6 months in, it started to occur to me, like, is this what I want to have my life look like? Like, do I have a choice? And thanks to the career that I was doing, working from home, I had a little bit more flexibility. Thanks to the financial independence concepts, I had flexibility in my budget, where I could say, you know what, maybe I won't retire at 40 years old, but I'm really going to have the opportunity to enjoy this time with my daughter because I don't need all this money. I'm not overstretched by my financial situation, which was, it wasn't pre-planned. It was just a really fortunate situation for us. So I can't pretend to be some mastermind. We were just in a good position and very fortunate in that way. So when I started thinking that way, I started realizing, we were saving 50% of our income. And I realized I could take a job making half as much money and I won't be able to save much, but I'm going to get to spend time with my daughter. And because I was reading all these parenting books that were like, kids sleep all the time. Most kids go to sleep at 6 p.m., and I was like, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Like, I get off work at 5:30. Am I seriously only going to get an hour with my daughter each day? Like, this person that we spent 2 years of our life and we were so intentional about bringing her into this world. And I'm going to spend an hour a day, Monday through Friday with her. That didn't compute for me. And for some people it might, and it might make perfect sense. But for me, it didn't feel good. And I was like, you know what? if I can try, I have to at least try to devise a plan to not do this. And if I can find a part-time job making half as much money, I will gladly do that. And, again, it's, there was a lot of work. There was a lot of thought and action that went into it. But again, very fortunate that I was able to find a part-time job that paid a little more than half as much. I was able to balance those finances and work a career where I could get off work at 12 noon and spend the next 7 hours with my daughter instead of just 1 or 2 a day. So, I knew that those first years, especially before school started, were going to be extremely important. That's probably the most time I was ever going to get to spend with her for the rest of her life and my life. And I knew that, once she turns 6, she'll be in school, and then 6 through 10, 12, I'm going to get some subset of time with her, but that's going to be the next biggest batch of time I'm going to get with her. And if I don't get it in now, it's not coming later. Like it'll come for, holiday seasons and, get-togethers and coming and seeing mom and dad. But that's, it's such a small percentage of the overall time I'm going to get to spend with her. So I was extremely intentional about making sure that before she turns 6 and before she turns, about 10, I got to make sure that I adjust my life to spend time with her, because I can't expect her to adjust her life to spend time with me later.
Yes. Yeah.
The phrase "each one teach one" is an African proverb meant to encourage the sharing of wisdom to the betterment of a community. And whether we're active participants in it or not, if you're a father, you're a member of a global community of dads. But even with all these examples and role models, becoming a new dad can be daunting. Meet Joel. If you've ever seen our video series, Money on the Table, then you kind of already know him. You've just never seen his face because he's the man behind the camera, shaping what you see, including what you're seeing right now. When we met years ago, he was dating, just starting out on his financial journey and enjoying his 20s. But now, he's engaged to be married and expecting his first child. So we decided to turn the camera on him for a change to see how he's thinking about fatherhood, money, and everything in between. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being completely unprepared, 10 being I got this, where would you say you are? And the follow-up to that is, what are you most unsure about?
Ooh, let me think about that one. I would say, just on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd give myself, truthfully, like a 4 in terms of preparedness. But mindset, I feel like I'm on like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
Like mentally, I'm like, yeah, I can do this. But when I look around, I'm like, okay, I need to actually do some things to, make it happen. So I'm very motivated right now.
What are those things that you think you need to do to be ready for when your kid gets here?
I think I really have to come to terms with how expensive childcare is going to be. For when inevitably we both can't be home at the same time. So, my parents live an hour away. So, it's not an easy thing to just go drop him off or anything like that. But things like just becoming a better planner, like being able to manage my time better and plan things out, because it's not just me winging it anymore. I have to consider my unborn son now. So that's definitely one thing. But again, I'm not 100% sure what childcare is going to look like for us. That's my main concern, because I know that it can be a second mortgage. It can be very expensive.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I put a lot of that on Kiersten. Kiersten was the one, I was completely like not mindful of like how much daycare would be, or like what the process was, or the fact that there were wait lists, or that like you really had to evaluate them, and what kind of like impact it has on your child's ability. The food that they serve there. Like I just kind of thought daycares were daycares. Like, again, I was thinking back on like my 1980s experience,
right?
Where you really just like drop a kid off in a basement with a grandmother.
That literally is what I used to do.
Yeah.
And then we switched to like a more institutional daycare.
So we talk about you in the book, right? And you're one of the few people where we actually use their real name. And there were a couple other characters in the book and stories that we told, and we had to use aliases just to kind of respect their privacy, but you allowed us to use your real name. So again, this is the Joel that we were referring to. And and I just appreciate, I remember that moment. I remember when I got the text message from you, and I was just like, man, I was just so proud of you, because I'd known you for a couple of years at that point, and I'd seen the progress. And so as I'm thinking about, all the work that you did to kind of build the financial foundation and to get to a point where you were, when you were doing that, like, did you think about like having a child and like what impact any of this money or sort of building these kind of solid like foundational habits, did you think about what impact that would have on them, or were you really just thinking about yourself in that moment, or maybe all of the above and you were just kind of preparing for whatever came?
I think when I accomplished that, I was in a place where I was able to be selfish. I was staying at home with my parents. I had no bills. I had no necessarily like love interests or anything like that. I just wanted to, I met you all and I was inspired, and I just wanted to emulate a similar life to what you guys had, like truthfully.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to retire with money quickly, and I didn't want to be working my entire life into my 50s or 60s or whatever it is. So I wasn't thinking about children or anything like that. But I mean, I wish I could like go back in time and like thank that version of myself that did that, because I think 10 years or 15 or whatever years down the line, like it will definitely benefit my child in one way or another.
Yeah, but even now, I'm curious as to like how much more challenging do you think it would be if you hadn't done that work?
Oh, it'd be crazy. Like, I'm concerned about childcare now, but I think I'd legit be panicking.
Yeah.
Like, how am I gonna afford any of this? Like, it's hard to take care of yourself nowadays. Like, imagine like having to take care of a fiance, a wife, and a child. Yeah, I'd be scared. I definitely wouldn't have purchased a house or anything like that. I might have just stayed at home.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it helps with that positive attitude, because after you've accomplished something like that, again, it just unlocks the way you feel about the world and what's possible. And it's like, yes, this new chapter in your life is going to bring its challenges, but the chapter that you just closed was also pretty challenging, and you did all right. Like, you did great. So
Yeah.
it gives you some sort of stepping stone to move on to this next one, which is just a different type of problem.
Yeah.
That was a big milestone for me, and I was able to share it with you all. But like you said, Kiersten, it did give me, even now, like the confidence to know that I can go into another potentially challenging situation and come out all right.
Becoming a parent is one of life's greatest joys and responsibilities. To prepare, you need IQ, EQ, and some good old-fashioned luck.
One of the themes that I heard when you were talking about your story is just the fact that you knew. It's almost like you have this intuition about what kind of parent you wanted to be before she even got here. A lot of people learn that, what is it, death by baptism by fire? They kind of learn along the way, but you had a really strong intuition about like what you wanted to change about yourself, which indicates a strong relationship with self already. But I'm curious, did you have a parent that role modeled that for you, or did you just kind of know based on who you are that that's the kind of parent that you would want to be?
It's a good question. And at the time I would have told you that no, my parents didn't, I don't know, maybe loosely or, unconsciously, maybe they did. But today I would tell you that we're not all that different, right? Like our parents do have an impact on the way that we view parenting, whether we like it or not. Like, we want to break free and do something totally different, and we'll never be like them. But at the end of the day, for good or, for better or for worse, they do influence the way you parent. Yeah, like a little bit of transparency. My dad was always a provider for our family. Um, he also, I will say, had a strong temper, but he was good enough to exit when he couldn't get control of himself, which was good for us. But it also meant there were a lot of times where we wake up in the morning and dad's there, and then he gets hot headed and you don't see him for the rest of the day because he knew it was best to separate. So for that reason, I think you'll find, like, for anyone you talk to about me, I'm extremely patient, I'm extremely calm and thoughtful about sort of my responses and the way I do things, and I know that stems from trying to make sure that I know he wanted to be there for us 1,000%. And so if he had control of his own emotions, he could have been a lot more. And I knew that if I had control of my emotions, then I could be more clear-headed and focused in there spending time with the people I cared about. And I think I also looked at it and said, my dad worked, he was a provider. Thanks to, again, going back to financial independence, it is a lifestyle. I've already got the provider box checked. Now what can I do? The provider box is checked if I have to take a part-time job. So now what can I do? And I think that's the beautiful thing about, if you can go from generation to generation and everybody gets a step forward in some way. It doesn't have to be a step forward in making more money or having a bigger, better job or having a cooler vacation home. Like, that's not the step forward I'm interested in. My step forward is I'm more interested in each generation of my family having a better understanding of themselves and stronger relationships with each other, whether or not we ever have generational wealth or anything else. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like, my son right now is in the Princesses. That's where he's in a school where majority of they just got 3 boys. All his whole class is little girls. So princesses, things like that, like they don't understand. They don't associate that to sex.
Yeah.
It's just toys. And to be real with you, the girls' toys are great. They got sparkles, they got rainbows. Kids love colors. Just got him the Encanto house. Loves it.
Yeah.
Lit up his world. He wanted to be Encanto for Halloween, the girl, and then he switched his mind. But we was both about to dress up as Encanto characters.
I'm not super strong like Luisa.
The donkeys got out again.
On it!
I was going to be with all the flowers.
This is just reminding me of why I think you and I kind of hit it off, like, off the bat. I mean, but even when I think about, men like us, it still kind of feels like we're in the minority a little bit. And as I'm thinking about what feels like a change or a shift in, I guess, traditional male roles or whatever you want to call it, just views on masculinity. I wonder if you share my disappointment in the pace of change, especially when I think about it from a standpoint of fatherhood. So when I think about the previous generation, there's data behind it too that talks about these are the kinds of things that men did, or even, let's just say, like, our parents' generation. These are the types of things that they did. This is how they viewed masculinity or fatherhood. And we know that we've seen some shifts, but I don't feel like we've seen nearly enough. But I'm wondering, like, is that just been my experience, or would you feel like we are still very much in the minority in terms of how you view manhood? And it's everything from what you've just said about the way that you're raising your child and your willingness to let them play or, like, go deep on princesses, no different than he might have decided to go deep on G.I. Joe tomorrow. It doesn't really matter.
Dinosaurs.
Or dinosaurs. Or just,
it's funny y'all said that. He's in the dinosaurs at the same time. Like, he loves unicorns, he loves dinosaurs, he loves dragons, he loves it all. Like, I just put together it's in the living room right now. It's really cool dragon, dinosaur like thing I got on Amazon. It's a train track. I'll show it to y'all. Y'all gotta get it. It's awesome.
It's like, I think I almost bought it on Cyber Monday, but I've seen it. It goes through like the mouth.
Yes, mountains and the
I know what you're talking about.
Comes out, and it's cheap.
Yeah,
and it's so well put together. And you, Julien, you summed it up in a very eloquent way, a very digestible way, and I appreciate that, because I try to do that as well when speaking about this, because toxic masculinity is something that I often have conversations about, and I am disappointed. I think disappointed is a really, really good way to express how I feel. And I'm disappointed because I don't feel that it's something that is that I find resistance from just in the male community. I find that some older women also look at men to have specific roles. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference between chivalry and this man is just supposed to do everything because he's a man. You know what I mean? And like I said, in our household, breaking down gender specific norms, my wife is the strongest person I know. Yo, homegirl is so strong, she's borderline sociopathic. Like, I'm dead ass. Like, she had 5 days prodromal labor, which means active labor without the baby coming out, with no epidural. We had at Phoenix in that bedroom, okay, in a pool. No, nothing. Straight up, just God and me holding up dead weight, weekend at Bernie's for hours. You feel me? Like she is the epitome of strength. And I think, you know, we're making progress. I think brothers like us that put it out there more, you know what I mean? I think it's important that we show that. When I started the Instagram stuff, I never wanted to be pigeonholed. I never wanted to be marginalized. I never wanted to be the fitness guy. I wanted you to see that working out is a major component of my life, but I am bigger than that. You're not going to just box me into being your favorite instructor. And I love the trajectory of my career because I proved a lot of people wrong. I lost a lot of followers because there were people that were coming there specifically for workouts. But I'm like, hey, listen, this part of my life is really important. But you know what's more important than that? Being present for my son.
Correct.
Being present for my son. If I gotta miss a workout to see my son's first steps, I can get back to that.
Yeah.
And at this point, at this stage in my life, I just joined a new gym. I'm able to get back into the swing of things, but I'm coming back. I'm not even coming back. I'm going to be better than I've ever been because I've caught up to who I was in many other ways. I've surpassed actually who I was in so many other ways. The way I show up for my family, the way I show up for my wife, my business, my understanding of financial literacy and the accessibility that I have now that I didn't even have a few years ago has put me in a completely different position and mindset. I'm stronger than I've ever been in so many other elements. I get the body back. Mm-hmm. What I focus on right now, more than that, is my spirit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm exercising and working my spirit. I am spending time with God. I am meditating. I am every morning waking up early and I'm feeding this muscle and I'm making this muscle stronger to the point where when these kids are good and the little one that's 15 months, he's also in school. And then I got almost an empty crib and it's just me and Chantel and we can focus on business and really prioritize my workouts the way I want to. I'm gonna get it back. Yeah. So I'm not even worried about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Who is your favorite TV dad and why?
Man, that's a tough question.
Oh no. I really like Uncle Phil, truthfully.
It really is. It's a tough question.
You know,
I was not expecting that, but good answer.
Uncle Phil, man. I love him. I love Uncle Phil, man.
It's like not only was he a good father, but he essentially adopted Will, and became his dad when Will didn't really have a father.
Yeah, Uncle Phil is the clear winner here. Yeah. He's come up several times.
Yeah, he's the guy. Like, if you listen, I could stay here with you all day, and I won't get into it. But if you just know, if you know, you know, and it's Uncle Phil.
So I think it really takes a different type of man to play father figure, not only for your children, but for other people's children as well. So, and he was funny. He was stern. He was, he just was a great balance. Really like Uncle Phil.
Yeah, it's so funny because we think of him as Uncle Phil instead of like Carlton, Ashley, and Hillary's dad. Like, it's dope that like his primary character is an uncle, but like we all love him like as a dad. Like, I mean, he's both, but After all these conversations, one thing is clear: becoming a family man is a decision. It's not something that happens automatically just because you have a kid. It's a total shift in your perspective, and it has ripple effects across your family and across your life. To that extent, The advice that dads give to other dads isn't just advice for the sake of adding another thing to the list. It's a way of communicating what they want to see in the world, what we all deserve to see in the world.
My last question for you is the biggest one and probably the hardest one.
Great.
But what advice do you have for young or new fathers, like on what to expect or what it's like being a dad? Like,
Whew. I wish I could dial this into a specific piece of advice, but it's going to be a little bit generic because I think this is the advice I would give.
Okay. Trigger warning.
We're not supposed to laugh.
No, it's cool. I'm doing that just for anyone that's listening that might be scared by what I'm about to say.
Don't worry about what your parents or grandparents or society tells you about what it is to be a man, like to be the big dog in charge of the household and to be a provider and to be tough and never show emotion. Please don't parent based on the way that society or your parents told you what it meant to be a father. I would say think about your child. If they're already in this world, then go watch them sleep, go look at them, go sit beside them, spend a little time with them. Don't talk, just watch them, understand them, be there for them. That's your whole job. Just be there for them, support them, and grow them into something that's going to be, I think, meaningful to them. Don't worry about what you think you're supposed to do. Just let it come, and it will come if you just get on their level, understand them, and don't put what you think you're supposed to be on them. Just let it flow. Don't overthink it, and just be there. Just be there with them.
This shit ain't sweet, dog. And it takes time and effort and consistency, and it is going to be the hardest and most challenging thing you will ever do, and no one can prepare you for it. No book that you read, your doula class, your yoga with your wife, all the fun shit that you do before that kid comes into this world. You don't even know what the birth story is going to be like. You know, what they sell you on TV, it always looks like it's great. 9 out of 10 times, they don't prepare the man for what's happening. You feel powerless. If you're a type A like me, and you're in that room, and there's doctors, and there's blood, and your wife has an emergency C-section when you thought you were just going in for back pains, and then the baby is thrown with you for the first 20 minutes of life, and he is screaming, and you've never been a father before, and you're in a dark room by yourself, and you're like, oh shit, I got my phone, let me just throw on that Stevie Wonder playlist that I made when he was inside the stomach, and then he stops crying. You adapt. You adapt. Your whole life, you are adapting. And when I tell new fathers, I tell new mothers too, but I try to stay out of women's business. But like, I feel like the only thing I can't do at this point is breastfeed and have a vaginal birth. You know what I mean? Because I am that committed to my children, is that even the person that you are talking to, the person that you're talking to at that moment before the baby arrives isn't the same person that you're talking to once that child comes into this world.
If you're a dad out there who hasn't had your kid go to sleep, and just pull up a chair and sit in the room with them while they sleep for 10 minutes. Not all night, just 10 minutes. And I think it helps you appreciate really how perfect they are already. And you can just be there with them, and everything's going to be all right.
It's just beautiful.
We'll cut out her reaction. Give it a little bit of airspace, but yes.
Let me stop the recording.
I told my friend that recently became a father, I said, I'm talking to you now as who you are now. The day that your son gets here, I have to relearn you again, because you're learning you again. You are no longer that person that you thought. There's an immediate switch that just clicks, and you become a different person.
I'm curious, have you asked people like for advice and what they think, and what have they been sharing with you?
I think for the most part, like, I've been asking questions about what those first couple months are going to be like. And, everybody's saying the same thing. You're not going to get any sleep. It's going to be terrible. There's almost nothing to look forward to is what, I've like surmised from it all. But I don't necessarily want that to be my story. I understand that it's going to be tough or whatever. There's going to be late nights, but I kind of live. Let me not say that, but I do live a life where I'm up late all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So, maybe dedicating that time to a different purpose is going to feel good,
Yeah, you're on that.
But overall, I haven't been getting necessarily a lot of like hopeful or like positive feedback. It's almost just like brace yourself for the ride because it's going to get crazy.
Me sharing and being open and being vulnerable with y'all, right? And the world, this viewership, and you saying, hey, listen, we've done the same with our son. If I didn't tell you that, it wouldn't have opened the gateway, a pathway for you to tell me that, for us to see the commonality of how we're raising our children with compassion and being open to whatever it is they want to explore in their lives.
We tend to focus on the child's development, but you develop as an adult as well, because you're introduced to this new social circle. You're introduced to these other parents and coaches and teachers and doctors and dentists and daycare workers that all you have in common is like the trust of this child, or that your children get along, and you learn how to bond with another adult outside of like this shared institution like work or school. You just learn, to say hey to Anne's dad because you guys usually drop off at the same time, or you saw Ethan's mom at the grocery store and had a good conversation about, like, it's an interesting thing that happens as an adult too. And you really start to understand your child in a different way based off of who they're drawn to socially and what sports and activities and teams and what coaches say about them. It's a very like fulfilling thing that I do think changes or accelerates your development as an adult as much as it does as a child, for the child.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you gonna record the birth?
Yeah. I work in film. Of course I'm gonna record the birth. I'm gonna hire a birth photographer as well.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Cashing Out the podcast. To see more videos like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to turn on your notifications. To get your copy of Cashing Out the book, visit Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore, or download the audiobook on Audible.